When you raise children, in my case, 4 of them, you learn a few things about how children communicate. For example, children seem to believe that if they ask a parent a question and don't immediately get an answer, there can only be one explanation: the parent didn't hear them. So they ask again, "Dad?" Nothing. "Dad?" Still nothing. At this point, the child realizes what the issue is and executes the resolution. They get closer and louder. "Dad." Parents know this routine, and the funny thing is, most of the time, Dad heard the question the first time. He may be trying to finish something or talking with somebody else, or perhaps just hoping that they will wait long enough, the question will just naturally disappear. But children are persistent. When they really want something, they don't give up easily. They keep asking because they are absolutely convinced that eventually you're going to answer. This goes for grandparents too, although in my case that's a little bit different. I'm not going to mention any names. It was my granddaughter. She was very clever when she was just 7. See, her approach was, "Grandpa, I have a question for you, and I know you're going to say no, because Mom and Dad always say no." Now, I'm sure you know the results of that. That childlike perseverance is what I see in the woman we encounter in today's gospel. She knows something about silence. She comes to Jesus carrying the kind of burden only a parent can fully understand. Her daughter is suffering terribly, and so she cries out, "Have pity on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is tormented by a demon." Notice what she says. She does not begin with an argument about why she deserves Jesus' help. She does not present a list of reasons he should answer her prayer. She simply brings him her pain. "My daughter is suffering." Sometimes I think that's all prayer really is. "Lord, here is the person I love. Here is what is happening. Here is what I cannot fix. And here is what I cannot carry anymore. Please help." But Matthew gives us one of the most difficult sentences in the gospel. Jesus did not say a word, just silence. So she comes to Jesus in desperation. Jesus remained in silence. Many of us understand that moment better than we would like to. Perhaps there are times when we have prayed and wondered why Jesus seemed silent. But what is remarkable about this woman is what she does next. She stays. She keeps asking. Even the disciples become uncomfortable with her perseverance, and they tell Jesus to send her away. But she does not leave. Eventually, she comes directly before Jesus, kneels down, and simply says, "Lord, help me." Maybe one of the most sincere prayers anyone can pray. "Lord, help me." When we don't know what else to say, or we don't understand what God is doing, those 3 words might be enough. Then comes the part of the gospel that can make us wonder. Jesus tells us that he has been sent for the lost sheep of Israel. He uses that image of the children's bread not being thrown to the dogs. But the woman does not become angry or walk away. She does not demand that Jesus treat her differently. Instead, she takes the image Jesus has given her and turns it into one of the most beautiful expressions of faith in the gospel. "Please, Lord, for even the dogs eat the scraps that fall from the table of their masters." In other words, Lord, I'm not asking because I deserve anything. I'm asking because I believe there is enough mercy in you even for me. She believes that even a crumb of God's mercy is enough. And Jesus answers, "O woman, great is your faith." Jesus does not simply say that she has faith. And I think her faith is great not because she understands or because things happen as she hopes. Her faith is great because despite the silence and the obstacle, she continues to trust. She stays She asks again, and she refuses to give up on Jesus. That is perseverance in faith. God's silence does not mean God's absence. God's delay does not mean God's refusal. Maybe some of us imagine faith as confidence that God will give us what we ask for. But faith is deeper than that. We will trust God even while we are waiting. We will trust God because we know who He is, and when we do not understand what He is doing. The story of the Canaanite woman also teaches us something else that connects all three readings today. She is not an Israelite. She is a Canaanite woman approaching Jesus, the teacher, and yet she comes to Jesus believing that His mercy can reach her too. That is what Isaiah prepares us to understand in the first reading. God speaks about foreigners who join themselves to the Lord. My house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples, not some, but all. St. Paul speaks in the second reading about his ministry to the Gentiles. And the gospel, standing before Jesus, a Gentile woman asking for mercy. All three readings point toward the same truth. There are no foreigners at the table of God's mercy. But sometimes some of us are more like the disciples than we would like to be. The disciples essentially say, "Send her away. She's bothering us. She does not belong here. She's making too much noise." But Jesus does not send her away. The person the disciples wanted gone becomes the person Jesus holds up as an example of great faith. There is a story about a businessman who lost almost everything he owned in a terrible fire. His shop and merchandise burned. Much of what he had spent years building was gone. The next day, he placed a sign outside the ruins. Shop burned, goods burned, but faith not burned. Business starts again tomorrow. Faith does not mean the fire never comes. Faith means the fire does not get the final word. The Canaanite woman who could have walked away, she could have allowed silence to destroy her hope. Instead, she stayed and trusted. She asked again, "Lord, help me." My prayer for us today is that when the answer is in silence, we can pray, "Lord, help me." When we are worried about someone we love, we can pray, "Lord, help me." And when we cannot understand what God is doing, we can pray, "Lord, help me." And then we can keep trusting.